Good evening, everyone. This is Pradeep, Ambassador of Change from GETI, the Global Education and Training Institute of Lucknow. And right now you're on our disruptive education platform provided to us by our mentor, Dr. Sunita Gandhi. And on this platform, we have met with and interacted with more than 1,600 educators from India and all over the world. And we have for you Ms. Urmila Paralikar, Faculty of Government College of Education, Ambe, Ambejogai. Ma'am, am I correct?
Ambejogai. Ambejogai.
Maharashtra. Ambejogai, yeah, okay. So Maharashtra. And she has an experience of 28 years. She has worked in universities of Maharashtra, and she is a government class 1 officer. Uh, she has worked on almost all the university boards that there are. She has 20 articles of research in international periodicals, and she has 2 books published, and she has spoken on these formats in America, in the Philippines, and in Indonesia. So thank you, ma'am, for being with us. To you, ma'am.
Ji, can I start now? Do I have the permission to start now, sir? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, please start.
All right. Greetings, everybody. This is Mrs. Urmila Paralikar, Faculty, Government College of Education, Ambejogai, Maharashtra. And I'm very happy to announce that I'm a part of the esteemed GETI, Global #Disruptive Education Movement, in a live session, in the live session as a speaker. And from the official page, www.facebook.com/GETIlearn/live. Today, that is Tuesday, 22nd of November, 2022 at 4 p.m., 4:10 p.m. today. This is being hosted by, as you know, Mr. Pradeep Mall, Ambassador of Change, GETI, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. I'll be speaking on curriculum and evaluation of student competencies and the role of rubrics in the same. Thank you so much, and let us begin now. This is a talk which is hosted by the GETI organization, Lucknow, UP. Like I said just a minute before, on the 22nd of November 2022. The date itself is very specific and very unique at 1600 hours. We will start on with the first page. First of all, let me bring to you a disclaimer. This is to bring to the notice of all the viewers that the thoughts presented here are entirely mine, although they are based on sound educational philosophies. An attempt, however, I have made here to provoke critical thinking on the part of both the learners, the students, the teachers, and the policymakers. The base data and the images to support all my arguments has albeit been borrowed from different sources, which are available online, and I do not claim any credit for the same. The sources for the same have been mentioned in the presentation in the notes section. I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of what we are doing over here. I would like to have it full, this thing. Can I make it full size, please? Can I have it on full screen, please?
Ma'am, you can do it yourself. Please full screen, but you won't be able to see yourself.
Okay. I don't think I'll be able to do it. Let me just see. Remove from the screen. No, I won't be able to do it. Anyways, I can see what has been written over here. So in the synopsis, you can see over here, this is the first thing is we're going to see quickly, hurriedly, what is the importance of curriculum. And then we're going to see what curriculum means and what is meant by the evaluation of student competencies. In the next session, we will see in the next slide, we will see a pre-orientation to the concept of evaluation, what is meant by precursors to evaluation, what is meant by evaluation. And then curriculum evaluation. What are the immediate goals? What are the short-term goals? What are the long-term goals? What are the intermediate goals, etc., etc. Then curriculum evaluation policies, process, what should be the process by making use of the rubrics, and lastly, how the rubrics help you in the evaluation of student competencies. So I'll go on to the next slide over here. Like I said, I'm going to give you a running, very hasty, hurried glance. We're going to see the importance of curriculum in the first place. Now, the significance of the curriculum document lies in the fact it lies in five important points. First of all, it's a highly planned document. Secondly, it identifies the content and the processes, consequent processes to be passed on to the learners. It also includes the values, the ideas, and the environment in which the students are going to study. It also orients the teacher about the competencies that are to be inculcated, fostered in the students. And last but not the least, but it is the curriculum document so well prepared and so well fortified, it helps the learners to prepare them for the real life, the current real life, and even the future life, and for all the problems that may be anticipated by them by living them. Then, such a curriculum is there, and you need to evaluate it. It is not that you make a curriculum and you just leave everything over there, you just teach and then you just go by, you just disappear. No. Whether the curriculum has achieved its objectives, whether the curriculum has been able to prepare the learners in the way it had imagined, it had envisioned, that needs to be evaluated. Otherwise, all the efforts, everything goes down the drain. Now, in order to evaluate also, there have to be certain preconsiderations. Now, what are these preconsiderations? What are these precursors to evaluation? So what do we evaluate? We evaluate through the curriculum, when we are evaluating the curriculum, we try to find out question number one: what educational, social, national, and other purposes should the program seek to attain? What a particular course, what a particular program should seek to attain? What are going to be the various aspects of it? Question number two: what learning experiences are to be imparted to attain the above? So, what learning experiences should be imparted to the learners in order to achieve certain educational goals, in order to achieve certain specific social goals, in order to achieve certain specific national vision? So, what kind of learning experiences are to be imparted? So, this learning experiences they have to be evaluated too. Question number three: how to determine if they have been attained? How does one determine what should be the process, what should be the device, what should be the tool in order to find out whether the objectives, whether the aims that were ascertained at the very beginning are being attained? This is the last question. The question is how to also ascertain the impact, the reach, and the sustainability of the above in near future and in remote future. Any curriculum, in my experience that I've seen, it it only caters for an impact which affects the immediate future. It does not really focus upon the near future or the remote future. So this is one aspect that bothers me a lot, that has been hassling me a lot, and I have thought, why not take this issue up? Why not disrupt the education by taking up this topic? My slide number 7 will also help you in this direction only. Graphically, all those questions have been graphically stated as thus. We need to find out what are the individual competencies. You can see over here, individual competencies. What are the individual competencies that the curriculum is intending to foster, is intending to develop in the students? And then, how these individual competencies are going to help him immediately as soon as he passes out the course or the program, how early and how much are these going to help him in getting the employment? And then how these very individual competencies are going to help him in the short term, which means 5 to 6 years or 5 to 10 years. And then how these very individual competencies will help him in the intermediate term, when he has almost gotten into the main flow, and he's into his 10th year or so, between the 10 to 15 years, how these individual competencies are going to help him out. What are they going to make out of him? What roles are these individual competencies going to prepare him for? So this graphical diagram, it helps you understand that. And last but not least, once again, how these individual competencies will take him, how far are they going to take him? How long they're going to be with him? How long they will be with him so as to transform him into an educationist, into an academician, into a thinker, critical thinker, into a philosopher, so on and so forth. Going on to my next slide, I'm going to take a very general model of curriculum design to help you understand this. Now, these were the questions that I put forth. Graphically also, I showed you what this means, what I'm trying to find out. I'm going to take now a very general model of curriculum design so as to help you understanding the concept. Now, here we are. Now, I want you to take a very close look at this general model of curriculum. This is called as a logic model. This is also called as a program action logic model. You can see over here, this portion, this huge arrow over here, it actually indicates the inputs into the curriculum. Inputs into the curriculum. What are the inputs? You can see over here. What are the national, social, cultural priorities? What is the mission of the institution? What is the mission of the society? What is the mission of the nation? What is the vision of the institution? What does the institution want to become? What is it that the institution wants to help the nation with? And then what are the various values that the institution, through this particular curriculum, wants to foster, wants to inculcate, wants to ingrain in the students? Then what are the mandates by the society? What has the society mandated this particular program to do? So the mandates are going to be there, the resources that you're going to put into the curriculum, the local dynamics, which are the local institutions, which are the local organizations that are going to help implement this particular curriculum, and who are going to be the collaborators in that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. These 8 things are basically the inputs that go into the curriculum, that go into the transaction of the curriculum. This is very basic thing I'm explaining. Now you can see over here, inputs. We're not going to go into this. We're going to go into this. So there are the inputs. These inputs are converted into outputs. Now, how do we determine the outputs? The term outputs is different from the term outcomes over here. Output refers to some kind of concrete service or product that you can see, but outcomes are mostly psychological, physical, and they are mostly cognitive or of cognitive order. Now let us see what are the outputs. What do the outputs comprise of? The outputs, they comprise of the participants. The outputs, they comprise of the activities. The outputs, they comprise of the direct products. Now there are certain things written over here. I'll read this last column over here. The direct products are, what do we create? What is the curriculum ultimately creating? What are the plans that the curriculum is going to develop? What are the event documents that are going to be created after this program or after this curriculum gets over? What are the topic areas that the curriculum will cover? What are the pages, articles, templates? Then satisfaction. How satisfied is the society going to be? And how fun it is going to be exercising, to be learning that curriculum? And how the community networks are going to be participative in this particular transaction of the curricular activities. So these are some of the direct products. All right. Now, what are the activities? Activities are, what do you develop? What do you deliver? What do you conduct? What do you train? How do you counsel? How do you facilitate? How do you partner? How do you disseminate? How do you work with media, etc., etc.? In transacting a curriculum, these are the activities that you go for. Who are going to be the participants? In different cases of different kinds of educational institutions, the participants are going to be different. Now, this is a general model, so all kinds of participants have been listed over here. Who do we reach? We reach the society, we reach the schools, we reach the consultancies, we reach the trainers, we reach the mentors, we reach the content creators, we reach the textbook boards, so on and so forth. Then who are going to be the existing contributors who are going to be contributing in the transaction of this curriculum? The curriculum makers are going to be there, the teachers are going to be there, the evaluators are going to be there. There are so many different experts or expert groups who are going to be participating in the transaction of this curriculum. Who are going to be the educators, who are going to be the decision makers, and who are going to be the customers. So these are the participants in this game. And now let's talk about the outcomes. Now everything is very specifically stated over here. Everything is very clearly laid out in crystal clear terms. Everything has been laid out over here. So I go over to the outcomes part. You can see over here the outcomes and the impact. It talks about, this particular column talks about two things. One is the outcomes and the impact. Now the outcomes have been stated in 3 different ranges or 3 different terms: short term, intermediate term, and long term. Now go over to the short term. You can see the short term outcomes are the results in terms of learning. Soon as the student passes out, he gets his progress report or he gets his scorecard, and then you get to learn the results in terms of his learning. Then how much aware he has become. That progress report itself, it tells you, it gives you an idea about how aware he is, how much of knowledge he has gathered, what kind of body of knowledge he has gathered is acquired. and then what attitudes he has acquired, he's come to acquire, what attitudes he has transformed, then what are the skills needed for that particular profession or for that particular job that he has gained, then what are the interests that he should have acquired to be in a certain profession and he has come to acquire, what are the opinions that he should have formed, he ought to have formed, and he has formed, what are his aspirations now, what are his intentions now, and what are his motivations now. So these are outcomes short-term outcomes that have an impact for a very short period of time, that is for 1 and 2 years after the student has passed out of the program. Now let's talk about the intermediate outcomes and let's see the impact, how long the impact stays. You can see over here the intermediate outcomes, they comprise of the results in terms of changing action. Now, intermediate refers to a period of tentatively, this is my opinion, tentatively they refer to a period of 5 to 10 years, let's say 5 to 10. For these 5 to 10 years, he is going to bring about a change in his actions. What he had learned, what theory he had learned in the schools and colleges, he is going to put it into action. Now he's going to change according to the situation, according to the circumstance. So results in terms of changing action. Then behavior results in terms of changing behavior, results in terms of changing the practice, results in terms of changing the contributions that he's going to make, results in terms of changing the decision-making abilities, whatever decisions he's going to make. Maybe he's going to be a supervisor, maybe he's going to be, let's say he's going to be an observer, he's going to be a headmaster, he's going to be a manager, he could be anybody. So what kind of decision making he's going to indulge in, he's going to engage in once he assumes such roles. Then what are the long-term impacts? What are the long-term impacts and what are the long-term outcomes of a particular program? So let us see, the long-term impacts are stated in terms of the results, in terms of the changes to the condition. What kind of changes is going to make to the conditions? What kind of changes is going to then make to the society? How he's going to reach out? How he's going to participate? How he's going to, to engage in a diverse sort of situation? Then what are the changes going to make that are going to be made to his economic condition, or he is going to make to the economy of the places of the society or the nation that he's living in? What kind of civic changes is going to make? What kind of community engagement he is going to do as a professional now? Because we are talking about long-term engagement, and long-term refers to after 15 years and over. So after 15 years and over, he is supposed to be a fully developed professional. So as a professional, what kind of civic changes or what kind of civic activities or movements is going to carry out? And lastly, what kind of environmental changes or environmental movements is going to make or contribute to the society? So this is a general logic model you can see over here, which talks about, first of all, inputs. The inputs go through a process. All the inputs, they go through a process where there are participants, where there are activities, and which results in some tangible thing. And then these outputs, they contain very much in them the outcomes. The outcomes are supposed to be short-term, they're supposed to be intermediate, and they're supposed to be long-term. It is not necessary that we should think about the long-term outcomes only. It is not necessary at all. It is entirely our discretion how we aim at looking at a particular curriculum. All right. Now, having had understood this particular model, we're going to move on to the next slide. Now, after going through that particular model, it is a high time that we need to think and we need to reflect about the nature of the programs that we are offering to our younger generations, to the upcoming generations. Especially, this is in special reference to the teacher training programs. Now, in this country, we have 2 years teacher training, 2 years teacher education programs. We've got 2 years CBCS BA programs. We also have 3 years dual degree teacher education programs. We've got a composite BEd and MBed programs, 2 years BEd and 1 year MBed program. We also have 4 years integrated programs, which go into which cater to the sciences also, and which cater to the arts stream also. So you've got accordingly BSc BEd programs, 4 years, and you also have 4 years integrated BA BEd programs also. No matter, we are gradually trying, we are experimenting with this program, we are experimenting with the curricula, we are experimenting with the programs also. No matter about that. No, absolutely no hassles about it, no issues about that. But the thing is that we need to think about these things. Are we evaluating our student competencies in terms of reach and extent? Are we thinking about in terms of outcomes? What kind of outcomes are we thinking about? Are we thinking about short-term outcomes? Are we thinking about intermediate outcomes? Are we really thinking about long-term outcomes within our curriculum? We need to really think and reflect upon these issues. I'm going to take you to the next slide now. Now you can see over here. Now when I'm talking about outcomes, I have talked about outcomes in the previous slides, but I was very vague over here. Now I'm going to give you outcomes in concrete terms. Why am I saying that? Because the world is evolving very fast, and newer and innovative and never heard of such jobs are coming up now. In olden times, let's say about 10 to 15 years ago, we had never heard of content writing. We had never heard of e-content. We had never heard of digital work. We had never heard of digital teaching. Nothing we had blended and flipped learning. We had never heard about that. But with every passing year, we're coming across newer and newer technologies, and these newer technologies are giving rise to newer jobs. So are we really thinking about that? Are we through our programs? These are the programs, 2-year programs, 3-year blended programs, 4-year integrated programs. Are we thinking, are we preparing our students for these kind of jobs? Now let's see what kind of jobs we have to prepare our students for. Now let's see what are the immediate outcomes. Now there is a table over here, and this table has got basically 3 columns and 1 is serial number. The first column talks about the range and reach of outcomes. The second column talks about the projection. Projection of what? The projection of the candidate, of the person, of the student who's currently at your institution. What is he going to become, and immediately or later on? And then competencies, whether the competencies for that particular term have been outlined or not. This is the fourth column. Let's talk about the immediate outcomes over here. You can see immediate outcomes are after passing out of any particular program of teacher education, he is a very fresh pass out, complete with behavioral and content competencies. He knows how to behave. He knows his content also. If he doesn't know his content, he's going to update that. This is on an assumption level. He is ready for the higher education or maybe school education, and he's ready for employment. Either he will go for higher education, he'll go for studies, higher studies, or he'll go for employment, go for earning money, go for earning livelihood. This is one thing. So the immediate outcomes are the competencies for this particular short-term outcomes. Yes, they are outlined, very clearly outlined. Everything has been very clearly outlined. Let's go over to the intermediate outcome. Let's see what he can become if he wanted to, if he wants to, if a learner wants to. The short-term outcomes are he is going to be a school teacher, he's going to be a college teacher, he's going to be a subject teacher, he's going to be functioning as a trainer, he's going to be functioning as a counselor, he's going to be functioning as a career guidance provider, is going to be a facilitator, and is going to be a mentor. This is a slight, let's say, it's an elaboration of the immediate outcome. Immediate outcomes, they become short-term outcomes. Short-term outcomes up till 5 to 7 years. So he is either he has gone for higher education, higher studies, or he has gone for employment. If he has gone for employment, for the first 5 years, 5 to 7 years, he is going to become a school teacher. He functions as a school teacher. So whether these the competencies which are meant for these short-term outcomes, have they been clearly outlined, clearly spelled out in the curriculum document? In my view, in my opinion, they're very hazily stressed. They're very hazily written. This is my very clear opinion. Very candidly, I'm saying they're very hazily written. Our student teacher, he does not know about what it means to be a trainer. Really, he does not know what it means to be a counselor. He really does not understand how career guidance is to be done. He really does not know what it means to facilitate or mentor students, because he is not being prepared for those roles, because only is doing only a theory. And after learning the theory, what he's doing is being sent to the schools for internship, for prolonged durations of internships, where he goes and he just teaches. He teaches under the guidance of the school teachers, the school management over there. But he's not specifically, very specifically or very intentionally, very deliberately prepared for those roles, which the colleges should do. Let's talk about the intermediate outcomes. The intermediate term starts from the year 7 or 10 to 15 to 20 years. Let's say 15 years, from 7 to 15 years. Now, in his 7 to 15 years now, in the current period or in the current times, he is required to act as, what is he required to act as? He is required to act as a critical analyst also. He is required to act as a curriculum designer. He is required to act as an evaluation specialist, assessment specialist, assessment expert. He is required to act as a content writer. He is required to also act as a content reviewer. He is required to act as an instructional systems designer. He is required to act as a diagnostic tester or a diagnostician. He is required to act as a remedial content provider, creator. learning resources developer or a researcher. Between 5th to 10th, 55, between 7 to 15 years is required to function in various roles. The curriculum actually does not prepare the student for this. Not at least the 4 years program, not at least the 3 years program, not even the 2 years program. The curriculum, I'm talking about the curriculum, I'm not talking about the actual internship which goes on in the school. So not defined beforehand, not defined beforehand. And if at all, they are very, sort of very vaguely and very ambiguously mentioned over there. It is very difficult for the teacher to make out for this particular role what activities have to be taken for this particular role, which other activities have to be taken, how the curriculum has to be transacted in order to help the student develop these particular roles. So this is my opinion. Long-term outcomes are the teacher functioning as a policy maker, as a consultant, and as an advisor. Now, after he has acquired 20 years of experience or 22 years of experience, he becomes experienced enough to start working on policies. If he wishes to, he can engage in writing policies and designing policies, educational policies for the future generations, for the younger generations. So he can do that. But it is my belief, it is my understanding, it is my assumption that because it is by sheer experience that he can do that. Had he been prepared and had he been trained appropriately for all these roles and for all these activities while he was training, maybe he could have done this earlier. Maybe he could, this stage could come early. This stage could advance. I want us all to think about it. I want us all to really reflect upon it. And I want you people to go through your syllabi, to go through your curriculum and find out the answers to the questions that I'm putting through. I'm trying to disrupt education here constructively. Now, this is another table that I've prepared over here. This is something concerning the CBCS program. This is a table that I've created for outcomes-based education model of education. We are all aware of outcomes-based education model on which the current B.Ed curricula has been based. Now, let's just see what's a model. I'm using the word model again and again. We need to see what is a model. This is just a revision, nothing else. A model basically describes the educational process in terms of 5 things. What are these 5 things? 1 is aim, 2nd is objectives, 3rd is outcomes, 4th is content, and then assessment procedure, necessarily in that order. The aims have to come first and then be followed by objectives. The objectives be converted into outcomes. For the outcomes, appropriate, relevant, valid content need be identified and designed, and assessment procedures be also worked out in order to find out whether the outcomes have been achieved or not. Now we see over here, now I have made a table over here, and this table over here, you can see head is written, I'll go back. Head is written over here. In this head, I've talked about what is to be developed in the student, and whether immediate outcomes, how immediate outcomes are to be achieved, how short-term outcomes have to be achieved, how the intermediate outcomes have to be achieved, whether they have been listed in the curriculum or not. So let's take each one by one. Number 1, the ultimate role. What is the ultimate role of any student or any learner taking up the courses, programs in education? It is to be a subject. This is the immediate outcome, to be a subject teacher. Then what is the short-term outcome? Again, he has to be a teacher. He becomes a teacher now. Earlier, initially, he was limited to, confined to only his subject. Now he's become a teacher. He can teach any subject now. Any subject now being in that school. So he has become a full-fledged teacher now, encompassing various roles. All right. Now, what is the intermediate outcome? Ultimate role, it is not listed. What he's supposed to become afterwards, it is not listed in the curriculum document. What I'm saying is, the curriculum document lists his ultimate role as an immediate outcome. The curriculum document lists his short-term goal as a short-term outcome, but it does not say anything about what he is to become after 6 to 10 years. After his 10th year, it is not said. And long-term, it does not mention at all. However, it says that in the vision of the program is to convert the learner into a facilitator, or to convert the learner into this. Just in 1 or 2 sentences, it is written over here. Now let's take up the second hand. Let's see whether the curriculum talks about this. Does the curriculum talk about core values and core competencies? Yes. As immediate outcomes, yes, it does. The core values and the core competencies required for that particular profession, in our case, teaching profession, yes, it does list out It does list out what are the various values and competencies that the student should develop. So as an immediate outcome, yes, they are listed, but what are they for? They're only for passing the program. And then for short term, the core competencies and the core values for positions, like for positions and activities like evaluation, for an activity, for a task like guidance, for an activity like counseling, they are very hazily listed, very hazily listed. The student does not, after going through a 4-year program or after going through a 3-year program, he should be actually prepared for these roles beforehand, only before he goes into it. And especially considering the internship is so very long, but they are very hazily mentioned. Intermediate outcomes are not mentioned at all, and long-term outcomes are not listed only. What is he supposed to do after 20 years or after 15 years? What he's supposed to do, it is not mentioned over here. Let's talk about learning outcomes in the curriculum document. The learning outcomes in the curriculum document are, of course, listed, but they are only for passing the program. They're very limited to learning outcomes, are very limited to the courses that the student undergoes. For a particular course, yes, learning outcomes are listed. For C2 course, yes, learning outcomes are listed. For course number 3, yes, learning outcomes. And so they're very limited. They're very confined to that particular course. So learning outcomes are listed for passing the program. The students pass the programs and they are assumed to be having had acquired those outcomes. And then short term, yes, they're listed in terms of knowledge, understanding, and skills. They acquire knowledge, they acquire the necessary understanding, then acquire the necessary skills to practice the profession for a short period of time, that is up to 5 years or 6 years or so. But for intermediate, they are not listed. What should the student, what are the various knowledges, what are the various understandings, what are the various skills the student should acquire after 10 years? They are not listed over here. The curriculum document does not give a vision of the future. It does not anticipate the future. It does not even prepare the student mentally for an unknown future where he can create innovative jobs. And for those jobs, he should be ready. The mental preparedness for that particular future, unknown future, the curriculum document does not ready him. And then let's talk about, so intermediate, it is not listed, and long term also it is not listed. So they don't talk about evolution of the society in terms of education also. Now let's talk about the standards of learning. So does the curriculum document talk about the standards of learning? Yes, it does. It's an immediate outcome. It does state so for passing the program. So after 2 years or after 3 years or after 4 years, yes, the student knows what are the standards of learning and he does so for passing the program. For short time, standards of learning are not listed. The standards of learning are also not listed for intermediate period, nor not at all for the longest term. So these are not mentioned. Now let's talk about evaluation. How is the evaluation stated in the curriculum document? How is the evaluation stated in the curriculum document? You can see for as an immediate outcome, yes, evaluation is done. We carry out internal evaluation, we carry out external evaluation, we make them undergo field studies, we make them do projects and assignments, we give them sort of tests, we give them theory tests, we conduct preliminary examinations, the university conducts theory examinations, so on and so forth. So yes, evaluation is being done as an immediate outcome of that particular program or that particular theory and whatever field activity or practical that has been mentioned. But for short term, evaluation is not planned. It is not planned at all. Intermediate is, of course, out of question, and long term is totally out of question. Once the student has gone into the school or once the student has gone into the college, when he starts practicing as a practitioner, no evaluation is being done now. Whether he is actually practicing the core competencies, the core values, and whatever he was taught, whatever he was inculcated, nobody tests them now. After 5 years, nobody tests it. Nobody checks whether he has retained it, whether he has evolved, or whether he has forgotten everything, nobody checks. So this is also, the curriculum does not check out the evaluation for short term or neither for intermediate nor for long term. I'm going to take you to slide number 13 now. Slide number 13 says how to evaluate student competencies through the curriculum. Now, this is the crux of our presentation. This is the main idea, or this is the main point of this presentation. This is what we have come here for. How do we evaluate student competencies through curriculum? Now, this is a very general thing. This is a very well-known thing that, first of all, ultimate goals have to be formulated. Then aims have to be formulated. These aims, what are going to be the aims for that particular program? What do you want the student to do once he enters that program? Once he enters a particular profession? So once he enters that particular profession, you have to identify that he needs to do 1, 2, 3, and 4 tasks. So what are the tasks? For each task, what are the competencies and values for that particular task? So task number 1, competencies and values. Task number 2, competencies and values. Task number 3, competencies and values. So on and so forth. You identify the list of jobs and tasks that the student or the incumbent is going to do when he goes into that profession. And accordingly, you find this immediate, you find KSA, that is knowledge, skill, and attitude, immediate outcome. You determine that immediate outcomes. What kind of outcomes do you expect in the students? And then you find KSA for short term. Short term means what are the various roles he's going to practice, what are the various roles that he's going to embody once he goes into that profession. So for that also you should have knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And for long term also, they're not going to be very detailed as far as the long term is concerned. They're going to be very brief, but they're going to be anticipatory in nature. But yes, they should be there. Knowledge, skills, and attitudes. For long term also, the curriculum document should give them some idea. Once the knowledge, skills, and attitudes, the immediate outcomes have been identified, the outcomes will determine what kind of content he is to study, what kind of content he is to study. You want a particular kind of outcome. You want then in correspondence with that, you need a certain kind of specific kind of content also. So in accordance with the KSA, that is knowledge, skills, and attitude, to identify the curriculum areas, not just one, but many areas you can identify, and you can have as many courses as you want. And then you design the performance standards. You design what kind of standards are going to be there, what are going to be the ultimate standards, what are the various 1, 2, and 3, up till where the student is supposed to reach. So the students attainment goals are to be designed over here. So design performance standards over here, and then tasks and assessments and competencies. Once you design the assessment standards, once you design that this is the ultimate level that he is to achieve, and then you design for this particular thing, this is the task, this is the assessment, this is how the assessment is going to be, and this is what the competencies are going to be. So performance standards, the standards of performance are going to determine the tasks, the competencies, and the assessment. So this is a process. So this particular section is only for the immediate kind of outcomes. The blue set of boxes you can see over here, it is for short-term outcomes. That is, for short-term outcomes means 1 to 5 years, up until 1 to 5 years or 6 years. What kind of outcomes are you expecting in your students? And long-term objectives are here. I've taken only 3 set of boxes, like columns I've taken. So after 10 years and onwards, you can say what are you expecting your student to do? What are you expecting? How are you expecting your student to behave? How are you expecting the student to evolve professionally? So that has to be listed in the long-term thing. You can see over here, I'll repeat, I'll just have a summary of it. Identify the aim first. Identify the competencies that serve the aim. Identify the curriculum areas in sync with the competencies given above, and then design your content. Identify tasks to be done in that content in sync with the competencies. Inform the learners of those beforehand. It is expected that when you start teaching or whatever, when you start transacting the curriculum of a particular course, the students should be well aware of what they're going to achieve after the end of the course. So you have to inform. It is your duty to inform the students or the learners about the outcomes of the particular program beforehand only. And then now this is the second part. The second part is you have to, now comes the assessment part. So how do you assess the students? Assessment so far has been very hazily done up until now in the country and elsewhere also. For the want of knowledge, for the want of development of assessment techniques, so it has been done very hazily. But now now a new thing has come up, now a new activity has come up, which is called as rubrics. Rubrics is an excellent design to assess the student, to pinpoint to what extent exactly the student has gained excellence. So rubrics is the second portion that I'm going to talk about, second part that I'm going to talk about. Design rubrics to assess the attainment of the competencies per task from the bottom level first. So the basic competency has to be tested first, and then the competency that rests upon the basic competency, that need to be tested. Then the competency which comprises of the first and second competence, they be tested, so on and so forth. It's a pyramid. So this is how the competencies are to be tested. I'm going to take you to slide number 14 now. This is my section number 2, rubrics for the evaluation of student competence. How do you make use of rubrics for the evaluation of student competencies? Let's see now. What is a rubric? Once again, I'm going to give you a running look, a very hurried look at the meaning of rubrics. Rubrics is a teacher-designed matrix, or it is a table comprising of rows and columns, okay? Comprising of rows and columns, and which has got certain features. What are these features? Let us see. It has got rows and columns intersecting. You can see over here, these are rows and these are the standing of columns. It has got rows and columns intersecting. It arranges criteria in an increasing order of scores for evaluation. Of course, designing rubrics is entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you. You can create a rubric like this also, where the criteria are arranged in the order of increasing scores, 0 to 49, 50 to 79, 80 to 89, and 90 to 100. In an increasing order of evaluation, you could do this also. You can create just one criteria also. It's up to you entirely. And then it also includes the matrix. The rubric also includes the description of the performance. What kind of performance will fetch what kind of marks? And then it arranges marks and range per criteria. Like I said, this is criterion. This is going to be criteria number 1. If he fulfills this criteria, he's going to get anywhere between 90 and 100. If he fulfills the criteria number 2, he's going to get anywhere between 80 and 89 marks. If he fulfills criteria number 3, he will get anywhere between 50 to 79 marks. If he fulfills criteria number 4, he will get anywhere between 0 to 49 marks. And then the scores be given. This scores, for instance, I have given an example over here. This is number 1, head of performance. Supposing you've given him some kind of task. This first head is number of ideas. So if his number of ideas are good, if his number of idea exceeds what you expect, then you call him best. If the number of ideas is up to what you said should be given, then it is good. If it is a little less than or around what is to be expected, then it is average. If it is less than what you expected, then he is needing remedial. Similarly, let's talk about the second criteria, head of performance. This is head of performance accuracy. Then you lay down criteria for this also. Accuracy, if he is writing beyond your expectations, if he is organizing it very well, if he is writing with imagination also, if he is giving his personal opinion also. So I'm sorry, this is about accuracy. So if he writes accurately, if he writes using the correct grammar, correct punctuation, and correct spellings, etc., using like everything is correct, vocabulary is also correct, then you give him the best. You give him marks between 90 to 100. Similarly, you design another criteria over here for giving him marks between 80 to 89. If you feel that, oh yes, the grammatical construction is okay, but he is not giving punctuation appropriately, and he's also like rest of the things are okay, but only punctuation is not appropriate, so you will give him somewhere between 80 to 89. It is entirely up to you. You lay down the criteria. If you lay down this criteria over here, then you will be giving him good. You will be giving him the good term. That is, you will gain anywhere between 80 to 89 marks. So this is how you give heads of performances over here, and then you design the criteria. These are the criteria. Actually, I've written best over here because this means best for number of ideas. So you design criteria for each of the head, separate criteria for each of the head. For each of the head, what C1 will mean, what each of the head C2 will mean, what each of the head C3 will mean, and what for each of the head what C4 will mean. So you design, you make the descriptors, and then you give marks for that. An example will help you over here. Let's see an example over here. You can see this is an example where there are only two tables. There are only two columns. One is over here, one is vertical. One is about the scores and the other is about the criteria. So I haven't given C1, C2, C3, C4 criteria. There's only one criteria over here. If he fulfills that, he gets that mark. I've given marks also over here. This is the lowest column number 1, column number 2, column number 3, column number 4 in an increasing order. All right. Now he will get between 50 to 59% marks if the research paper demonstrate limited understanding and execution of the assigned objectives. The thesis statement is also simplistic. It is unoriginal. It is it's not present at all. And then the writing is unbalanced and is developing. It's not very unbalanced. It is unbalanced in developing body parts. It is weak and it is incomplete. So if the student is like this, if the student writes like that, you give him between marks 15 to 59%. And if the research paper that the student presents to it demonstrates some understanding and some execution of the assigned topics, which are faintly stated, they are which were expected, they are not, but he's not very confident in writing. His writing is also inconsistent in terms of balance in developing body points. He also exhibits weaknesses. There are also lapses in correctness. Writing also has got many errors and ambiguities. In that case, you will give him marks between 60 to 69%. It's up to you. And then these are the descriptors: descriptor 1, descriptor 2, descriptor 3, descriptor 4. For each descriptor or criteria, you have given marks. For each criteria or descriptor, you have given marks over here. So you can have a simple matrix also comprising of 2 columns. You can develop the criteria all by yourself, design the criteria all by yourself, and assign the marks, range of marks also all by yourself. This is an example of rubric. This is how you check the research competencies. You do not want to simply assign research competencies on the basis of, how you feel. Oh yes, he's written good, give him 50 out of 100. Oh, he's written excellent, let us give him 75 out of 100. No, that should not be the case. Your likings, your personal liking, or your personal reach, or your personal competence should not be the criteria for giving marks. There should be very clear cut content based criteria, descriptors of performance, which should determine how the student is to be evaluated. Let's go over to what should be evaluated through the curriculum via appropriate fieldwork. Now, as far as the teacher training programs are concerned, we normally are checking teaching abilities, only teaching abilities. We are checking, let us say, some computer work we are checking. Let's say we are checking the ability to conduct co-curricular work. All right, we are checking that. But and theory, of course, we are checking. The knowledge and understanding of this we are checking. What we are not checking is there are many things which are embedded, many things which are contained in it, which don't come to the fore. Excuse me. Hello, कौन है? अच्छा ठीक है, आता ना बोला please. So what is it? What are the competencies which you're talking about? There are so many competencies which are actually embedded, which you don't get to see in the curriculum. Only a visionary can see what are the competencies to be tested. You want a teacher, and you want a teacher who should be complete with very many qualities and very many virtues and very many skills. What are those very many skills that we are looking for? We want a teacher to be this also. We want a teacher to be a dancer also. We want a teacher to be a musician also. We want a teacher to be, to be playing instruments also. We want a teacher to be a very good a diagnostician also. We want him to create content also. There are so many things we're expecting out of the teacher. But when it comes to actual evaluation at the time of its college education, we don't do that. So I've given you here a sort of a pictorial this thing to help you understand that. So what are the individual goals of teaching? Teaching skills we touch. What do we check in teaching? We check whether he can teach the class. We check whether he can even test the class. We check whether he can do, whether he can actually manage the class. This picture depicts the management, whether he can manage the class or not. So on and so forth, whether he can write something or not. What are the immediate goals of group skills that the curriculum checks, or we check through our teacher training programs? We check whether he can talk, whether he can communicate, whether he can engage in debates, discussions. This is what we check. We also check whether he can sit on the computer, whether he is conversant with the computer literacy, whether he is conversant with the computer programs and all, whether he can function like that. We also check whether he can do teamwork or not, whether he can function in a team or not, whether he can be a part of the team and go for a common goal or not. We check that also. We ought to check that. We don't check this. And then you can come over here, short-term goals, co-curricular goals, whether he is able to carry out co-curricular activities. Co-curricular activities may be some kind of serious work. For instance, you can see your woodwork this girl is doing. So woodwork is there, cloth work is there, clay work is there, metal work is there. There are so many different kinds of activities that go with the curricula. So is he proficient in that? Can he help his student do that? Can he also train his students in doing that which are associated with this subject? Do we do that? So we are supposed to check that also. You can see here instrumental music. So the teacher should be taught and trained to be proficient and trained to be in some kind of instrument. So we don't check that. Here we don't check the sports ability. We just conduct sports for the sake of conducting it for a very short period of time, and then we assign marks and all, and then we'll be done with it. We also should check whether he is able to conduct a lab, whether he is able to set up a lab, whether he is able to train the students in laboratory method or not. These are some of the let's just say illustrative kind of competencies. The list is exhaustive. So these are the various things we check. And then long-term abilities, what are the long-term professional abilities we are trying to develop in our students. You can see in the first picture, we want our students to become critical thinkers. We want them to become analysts. We want them to become content creators. We want them to become evaluation specialists, assessment experts, so on and so forth. Are we doing that? Are we doing that? We are not doing that. We are not preparing the students for that. Then, are we preparing the students for leadership role? You can see one person is leading the others, leading the whole team together. So are we checking that? Are we able to assess that? Are we evaluating this particular student competency through a curriculum? Then you can see, are we preparing the students to prepare, howsoever mock it may be, howsoever sketchy it may be? Are we preparing them to prepare plans and policies and procedures later on in the later part of their life? We are not doing that through a curriculum. Then, are we preparing our students? Are we checking the competency, whether they're able to counsel a student, whether they're able to guide a student, whether they're able to give career guidance, personal counseling, etc. to a student? We are not checking that. So the four images which I mentioned aware, they are indicative of the long-term professional abilities that the curriculum does not check, does not inculcate also. Leave aside checking, it does not inculcate also. Same goes for this also. We are doing everything just for the sake of doing it. We are not actually checking their competencies. Like I said earlier, I will reiterate one more time that we are actually checking their theory. We are actually checking the teaching in terms of the 5 steps, the 5 Harbashan steps that they do. Harbashan or any other for that matter, any other educator's lesson plan. We're doing that, all right? So we are checking only the immediate goals while within the classrooms or while within the schools. That's what we are checking, and we are checking individual goals. That is all the curriculum is checking currently, all right? So this is what should be evaluated, what ought to be evaluated through the curriculum, because we have to take into account the range and the impact of the curriculum into the later life, into the professional life. So instead of assessing command over the subjects, the competencies be evaluated. It is the competencies which should find their place in the final progress report. I'll show over here. Next slide talks about that only. Now see over here, you can see over here, this is my original idea, like I say. So you want your student, you don't want your student to be an image, to be, like in comparison, to be, like stood in comparison with, or to be compared in comparison with other students. He should be compared to his own self, right? Now, when he's being compared to his own self, what are the various things that are to be evaluated? Like I said in the earlier slide also, subject knowledge and understanding and skills, of course, they have to be tested. They are a part and parcel of the particular program, so they have to be tested. So this should be there. Teaching abilities and skills and the concerned competencies should be there, yes. But apart from that, apart from these two things, what else should be there? Learning materials production abilities. Is he able to create e-content? Is he able to write an article? Is he able to prepare a manual? Is he able to write students' handout? So these learning materials preparation, is he able to prepare some audio visual content? So that learning material production abilities, that should be evaluated too through the curriculum. And then you can see researching abilities. Researching abilities, far as the B.Ed is concerned, far as we just make the students go through short action research projects, and then in the postgraduate programs, we make them do dissertations, and then they go for MPhil and so on and so forth. So up until MEd, up until the master's PG programs, we train them only for dissertations and accent, no problem about that. But researching abilities should definitely find their place into the progress report. And then innovation ability, the ability to innovate. The world is constantly evolving. The world is innovating and renovating itself in any field. God, think about any field. Every single field you can think of, you can conceive of, is changing. It's continuously reforming, changing, and it is evolving. What was there 5 years ago or 2 years ago, it's not there now. So every learner should be, like made to feel, made to understand this fact that they are living in a world that is in a constant state of flux. They must remember that, and they should prepare for that. So the ability to innovate ideas, that has to be developed too, that has to be checked also, that has to be inculcated in the curriculum also. And then the counseling abilities, that should also find a place in the progress report. What do we have in our progress reports? What do we have? We actually have, for as B.Ed or for all the PG and UG programs, we've got a scorecard. We've got a grade sheet, all right? Scorecard and a grade sheet. The student has achieved this much of CGPA and he has achieved this much of SGPA and CGPA, right? So that is also in terms of those courses. The courses are written, the field activity is written, only that is written. But nowhere the progress report do you find a mention of these abilities. When in fact we are checking the abilities, we are preparing the student for a profession which calls for these abilities. Why does not Why does not the progress report? Why does not the scorecard? Why does not the grade sheet give these abilities a mention? Why is it not refined? So I'll continue again. Once again, content creation abilities should be tested, should be evaluated, should find a place on the grade card or score sheet. Digital competencies should find a place in the grade sheet. Evaluation capabilities should be given a place in the grade sheet. Group skills, leadership, communication skills, all the major skills, the core skills, all the core competencies should find a place in the grade sheet slash scorecard. I'm of this opinion, like they do for the school students also. For the school students, their progress report is fairly comprehensive, and it is absolutely in terms of competence. I believe it is my opinion that even the students of the PG or the UG programs, the students of PG programs, they should have a scorecard, or they should have a scorecard or a grade sheet which comprises of competencies and skills and not the subjects. Now, subject should merely be a means. Subjects and courses, they should be merely a pretext in order to reflect upon, in order to bring about the development of these competencies. I'll go over to slide number 19 now. There is another suggestion that I mentioned over here. Not only this, but in order to reinforce the professional skills, the students, the college, the students and alumni, for the students and alumni, for especially the students and alumni, the institution should conduct regular refresher and orientation courses from time to time. The students should be called back. All those who have gotten into, after passing out the course, all those who have gotten into the profession, all those who have gotten the employment, they should be called back to the institution, respective institutions, every 5 years, so that their professional abilities and skills are updated. This is my original suggestion. Then that was the last suggestion, last and ultimate suggestion. I thank you all. I'm very thankful to all of you for having had patiently heard me. The presentation concludes here now, and I feel really very privileged to be associated with the GETI Foundation and the Council for Global Education. I thank Dr. Shri Pradeep Malji, the host, for involving me in this endeavor. I wish this unique moment an ongoing luck. May it get the best of the thinking minds, and may it help shape the upcoming generation of the young minds, as is the vision and mission of this particular organization. Thank you very much, and I'll take your leave. Any questions so far, you can ask me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Urmila Paralikar ma'am, for that excellent talk on.
Pradeep Malji, are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Pradeep Malji, are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Pradeep
So,
Malji?
on the top of curriculum and evaluation of student competencies, can you hear me, ma'am?
Pradeep Malji, are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Pradeep Malji, are you here?
Yes, ma'am. I'm there. Can you hear me?
I believe he's gone elsewhere.
Hello. Can you hear me, ma'am? I'm on the program, ma'am. You can't hear me.
The program is over. I was wondering whether could you hear me?
Yeah, I'm on the program, ma'am. You probably can't hear me.
I cannot
but
hear
I'm
you.
there. Yeah.
Okay, I cannot
Thank
see you
you very
also.
much.
Thank you so much.
Urmila ma'am,
Thank
thank you very
you.
much for the talk on curriculum and evaluation of student competencies. And there was a question, but I think you answered it. What is it about the role of rubrics in advancing assessing students and the use of rubrics in higher education and competencies? I think you answered it. Would you like to add something to that?
I think I have fairly well mentioned over there. The rubrics can check the competencies in detail. The sub-competencies and the competencies can be listed as the descriptors, and they be given marks. Per head of the conference, they be
Yeah.
given marks, and they will, because in fact, instead of just evaluating one particular skill as a whole, writing skill is very good at writing. Why not break up the writing skill into components? Why not break up the writing skill into descriptors and give each descriptor a marks for a particular level of attainment? So accordingly, you can like assess the student appropriately. You don't assess him vaguely or ambiguously. You can assess him appropriately, accurately. You can assess him.
So thank you very much, ma'am. Good evening, everybody, and goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you very much, and see you again
Thank you
soon.
so much. Yes, sir, definitely. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Bye, sir.